I'm Johanna. The first time I realized my own name could be used as a weapon. It was printed on a land sale contract I'd never seen under a signature that wasn't mine. But my aunt smiled at me across a kitchen table like she hadn't just tried to sell my future for quick cash. And the worst part, she would have gotten away with it if the buyer hadn't looked up at the signing and said, "Wait, I know you." That's when my aunt made the biggest mistake of her life. My family calls it the orchard. Like it's some quaint little storybook place that exists only for nostalgia and photo albums. But to me, it was more than that. It was my father's promise, made when he was sick and trying to make peace with everything he was leaving behind. He died when I was 20-3. 2 weeks before he passed. He held my hand and said, "Live. Don't let anyone talk you out of what's yours. I put the land in your name for a reason." I remember laughing through tears, thinking he was being dramatic. "Dad, nobody's going to steal an orchard." He looked at me with that tired seriousness of someone who's seen what family can turn into when money enters the room. "People don't steal land, sweetheart. They steal signatures." At the time, I didn't understand how literal he meant it. After the funeral, life became a blur of paperwork and grief. My mother, Marianne, moved like a ghost through the house. I did the practical things, canceling subscriptions, sorting mail, making sure the utilities were switched properly. The orchard paperwork was in a folder Dad labeled in his careful block letters, "Johanna deed and title." I didn't obsess over it. I didn't even open it right away. I was grieving. I was working full-time at a design firm in the city. I was trying to keep my mom fed and sleeping and functioning. And that's when my aunt, Candace, arrived like a savior. Candace was my mother's older sister, the type who hugged too hard and smiled too long, always speaking in that sugary tone like everything was under control, as long as she was the one controlling it. "Sweetheart," she said the day she came over with 2 casseroles and a bottle of wine, "you shouldn't be dealing with all this stress. Let your family help." Marianne clung to that offer like a life raft. Candace started showing up every other day. Then every day, she brought groceries. She reorganized cabinets. She handled calls. And slowly, without anyone ever voting on it, she became the manager of our grief. I tried to be grateful. I really did. But there was always something about Candace that made my skin prickle, like she was measuring the room for what she could take out of it. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found Candace in my father's study. The desk drawers pulled open. She jumped like a teenager caught snooping. "Oh, Johanna, I was just looking for your mom's insurance documents. She asked me to." Marianne wasn't even home. I looked at the open drawer and saw my father's folder, the one labeled with my name sitting on top of the mess. I didn't say anything then. I just tucked the folder under my arm and carried it upstairs to my room, feeling childish and paranoid, and hating myself for it. That night, I asked my mom gently, "Did you ask Aunt Candace to look for papers in Dad's study?" Marianne blinked slowly. "No, but she's helping." Why? I didn't want to add suspicion to my mother's sorrow, so I swallowed it. "No reason." A few days later, Candace casually mentioned the orchard while stirring tea like she owned the kitchen. "You know," she said, "land is complicated. Taxes, upkeep, legal stuff. It might be smarter to sell it while the market is hot." I forced a small smile. Dad didn't want that. Candace sighed like I was being stubborn. "Honey, your father was sentimental. People say things at the end." My jaw tightened. "He put it in my name." Her eyes flicked up, sharp for just a second, then softened again. "Exactly. That's why I'm worried. You're young. You don't know how predatory people can be. You could get tricked." The irony made my stomach twist. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number while I was in a meeting. I stepped out into the hallway and answered. "Hello," a man's voice, polite and business. "Hi, is this Johanna Hart?" "Yes, this is Ethan Cole. I'm calling regarding the orchard property on Willow Ridge Road." I froze. "Regarding, what about it?" There was a pause on the line, like he was recalibrating. I'm scheduled to finalize the purchase tomorrow at 11 a.m. Your attorney's office sent confirmation, but I wanted to verify something directly." My throat went dry. "Purchase? What purchase?" Another pause, longer. Then Ethan said, quietly, "You didn't authorize the sale." My skin went cold. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "No, absolutely not." Ethan exhaled. "Okay, then I'm glad I called, because I saw the paperwork, and I thought the name looked familiar. I'm pretty sure I know you." My head spun. You know me. I used to, he hesitated. I used to be friends with Noah in college. You dated him for a while, right? I almost laughed. Because yes, Noah, my first real heartbreak, my first real I should have known better. Ethan had been the quieter one in their friend group. We'd met a handful of times, enough that my face would register. That's me, I said, voice shaking. Ethan's tone sharpened. Then this is wrong, because the woman listed as your representative is Candace Halston, my aunt. The hallway tilted. I gripped the wall to steady myself. What did you say? She's the one who's been coordinating. Ethan continued. She claims she has your authorization and that you're out of town. I couldn't breathe properly. I'm not out of town, I figured, he said. Because if you were, you wouldn't have answered. Listen, before we do anything official, you should come to the meeting tomorrow. Bring ID and maybe bring someone you trust. Someone you trust. In that moment, the only person I trusted was a stranger on the phone who had nothing to gain from warning me. Ethan, I said, swallowing hard, thank you. I don't want to be involved in something crooked, he replied, and I don't like the idea of you getting hurt. I hung up and stood there, shaking, as my meeting continued behind the conference room door, like the world hadn't just cracked open. That night, I drove straight home. Candace was at our kitchen table with a stack of papers and a bright smile, like she'd been waiting for me. There you are, she chirped. I made your mom's soup. She's resting. I looked at the papers. My name was on top. My name. In bold. What is that? Candace didn't even blink. Just paperwork, sweetheart. Adult stuff. I walked closer and saw the header. Purchase and sale agreement. My hands curled into fists. Why is there a contract to sell the orchard? Candace smiled wider. Too wide. Because, honey, we talked about this. It's not practical. And I found a wonderful buyer. I never agreed. Well, she said, like she was explaining to a toddler. You didn't have to. Your father wouldn't want you buried under taxes. I'm doing what's best. What's best for who? Candace's eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. For your mother and you. You'll get a nice lump sum. A fresh start. You forged my signature, I whispered. Candace laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, Liv, don't be dramatic. It's not a forge. It's a proxy. I'm family. I stared at her, hearing my father's voice. People don't steal land. They steal signatures. Marianne shuffled into the kitchen then, hair messy, eyes puffy. What's going on? Candace stood up quickly. Nothing, Marie. Johanna's just stressed. I turned to my mom. Mom, did you know she's selling the orchard? Marianne's face drained of color. Selling? Candace, you said you were just looking into options. Candace's hand came to her chest. And I am. There's no reason to panic. We're finalizing tomorrow. And finalizing, I repeated, horrified. Tomorrow? Candace's smile sharpened. Yes, tomorrow. And you're welcome. For a second I thought she'd panic. I thought she'd backpedal. But Candace was too confident. She truly believed she had already won, because she assumed I wouldn't dare make a scene. She assumed my grief would keep me quiet. She assumed my mother would stay confused and passive. She didn't know Ethan had called me first. I looked at Candace and felt something settle in my chest. Not fear, not sadness, something colder, clearer. Great, I said softly. I'll be there. Candace's eyes brightened, triumphant. That's my girl. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with the folder Dad had labeled for me, reading through the deed and title documents with shaking hands. The land was indeed in my name, fully, cleanly. My father's attorney had arranged it, months before he died, which meant Candace's proxy claim was nonsense. So how was she doing this? At 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and searched my father's attorney's name. Then I called the office's emergency number, fully expecting voicemail. To my surprise, someone answered, a tired voice, cautious, Hendricks and low. This is Pamela. My name is Johanna Hart, I said. I think there's a fraudulent sale being processed under your firm's name. Silence then. One moment. A click, soft, muffled voices. Then another voice came on, crisp and alarmed. Miss Hart, this is Daniel Lowe. Can you explain exactly what you mean? I told him everything. Candace, the papers, the meeting. Daniel's calm cracked. Miss Hart, we did not authorize a sale on your property. My pulse spiked. But the buyer says your office confirmed it. We sent nothing, he snapped. Then, more controlled. I need you to email me any documents you have, tonight. I scanned and sent everything. 10 minutes later, Daniel called me back. These forms are counterfeit. The letterhead is close but wrong. The signature stamped is not mine. and the notary seal appears. Altered, forged. Forward. My hands started trembling again. Forged. Forward. My hands started trembling again. So what do I do tomorrow? Daniel's voice turned steady, deliberate. You show up, you bring your ID, and you let her believe she's in control until we can document it. I will be there, and I will bring a colleague. I swallowed. I'm scared. I understand, he said, but we can stop this. And if she's committed fraud, she needs to be held accountable. When I hung up, I stared at the dark ceiling and felt grief shift into something sharper. Candace wasn't helping. She was hunting. The next morning, I dressed like I was going to war. Simple black dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup so my face looked hard and awake. I kissed my mom's forehead and told her, no matter what happens today, I need you to listen to me, okay? Marianne's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. Okay? Candace arrived in a pale blazer, glowing with smugness. Ready, ladies, let's do this. The meeting was at a small title office across town. Neutral walls, fake plants, a conference table polished to a shine, and sitting at the far end, in a crisp blue shirt, was Ethan Cole. He stood when he saw me. His expression was tense but relieved. Candace walked in like she owned the building. Mr. Cole, so nice to finally meet in person. Ethan's gaze stayed on me. Hi, Johanna, Candace faltered. Oh, you two have met. Ethan's voice was calm. Yes, that's why I called her. I wanted to make sure the seller was actually her. Candace's smile tightened. Of course it is. A woman in glasses, the title officer, named Kara, cleared her throat. Let's begin. We just need Johanna Hart to sign here, here, and here. Candace slid the papers toward herself, reaching for the pen. I'll handle. No, I said, flat. Candace blinked. Excuse me. I pulled my ID from my purse and set it on the table. I'm Johanna Hart. I'll handle my own signature. Ethan's eyes flicked briefly to the door, as if waiting for someone. Right then, it opened. Daniel Lowe stepped in with another woman, his colleague holding a briefcase. Daniel's gaze locked on Candace like she was a stain. Ms. Hart, Daniel said, nodding to me. Thank you for coming. Candace's face shifted. Who is that? Daniel placed a folder on the table. I'm Daniel Lowe. My firm represented your brother-in-law, and we represent Johanna Hart regarding this property. Kara's eyes widened. Mr. Lowe, Candace cut in sharply. This is unnecessary. We already have everything prepared. Daniel turned the folder toward Kara and Ethan. The documents you have are counterfeit. The letterhead is fraudulent, the signature is forged, and the notary seal has been altered. Candace's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she looked unsure. I watched that crack appear in her confidence and felt something inside me steady. Kara's hands hovered over the papers, as if they'd turned radioactive. Miss Holston, is this true? Candace's eyes snapped to me. Johanna, don't do this. We're family. I leaned forward, voice low and controlled. Family doesn't sell someone else's inheritance in their name. Candace's cheeks flushed. Your father would have wanted this. The land is a burden. You don't even live there. Ethan spoke then, quiet but firm. That doesn't matter. It's hers. Candace looked at him like he'd betrayed her, too. Stay out of this. Daniel's colleague, the woman with the briefcase, spoke calmly. We've already contacted local authorities. If Miss Hart wishes to pursue charges, this becomes a criminal matter. Marianne, who had come with me and sat silent until then, suddenly whispered, Candace, what did you do? Candace's eyes flashed. I did what you were too weak to do, Marie. I tried to secure our future. Our future, I repeated. Or yours. Candace's breathing grew fast. You're ungrateful. I held your mother together while you were off playing career woman in the city. I felt the sting, but I didn't flinch. You didn't hold her together. You kept her confused so you could move without resistance. The room held its breath. Candace stood abruptly, chair scraping. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. Daniel's voice stayed even. You can leave, but the fraud is documented. The buyer has evidence, and Ms. Hart has your paperwork and communications. Candace's gaze darted around, calculating exits, angles, consequences. Then she did something I'll never forget. She looked at my mother and hissed, if you let her do this, you'll regret it. And my grieving Marianne finally stood up straighter than I'd seen in months. No, she said, trembling but clear. I regret trusting you. Candace's face tightened with rage. Then she turned and stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots. The aftermath was quieter. but heavier. Kara gathered the fraudulent documents carefully, like they might smear. Daniel promised to file the necessary reports and lock down the property records. Ethan apologized again and again for even entering the process. "It's not your fault," I told him. "You saved me." He looked at me, regret in his eyes. "I'm glad I recognized your name. Otherwise," I nodded, "otherwise, the orchard would have been gone by lunch. Over the next weeks, Candace didn't go down quietly. She sent texts at midnight. "You're destroying this family." She left voicemails crying. "I was only trying to help." Then angry ones, "You'll regret humiliating me." But the legal system doesn't care about crocodile tears when the paper trail is ugly. Daniel's firm discovered Candace had created fake email chains, altered templates, and even tried to manipulate a notary. The authorization she claimed she had, a printed scan of my signature clipped from an old birthday card I'd signed for my dad, one Candace had probably stolen from our house. That was the part that made me feel sick. She'd turned something loving into a tool. The twist, though the part Candace didn't see coming, was how greed makes people sloppy. Ethan provided records of the communications Candace sent him. Daniel traced the counterfeit forms back to a local print shop, and when investigators looked closer, they found Candace had attempted similar deals before, quieter ones, counting on family members to stay silent. But I didn't stay silent, because the revenge I wanted wasn't dramatic, screaming, or a viral video, or public humiliation. My revenge was making sure she could never do it again. The satisfying part came the day Candace showed up at our house unannounced, eyes wild, voice too sweet. "I'm willing to forgive," she said, standing on our porch like she was offering peace. "If you drop this." I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. "I'm not dropping it," I said. Candace's smile twitched. "Johanna, be smart. Families handle things privately." I stared at her, steady. "You tried to sell my father's land in my name. That's not family business. That's a crime." Her voice rose, sharp. "You think you're so righteous. You think your father trusted you more. But he's dead, Johanna. He's not here to clap for you." The words were meant to cut. Instead, they clarified everything. I leaned closer so she could hear me without theatrics. "You're right. He's not here. So I'm protecting what he left me. And I'm protecting my mother from you." Candace's eyes glittered with hatred. "You'll regret this." I nodded once. "Maybe. But you'll regret it first." I stepped back and held up my phone. "And by the way, this conversation is recorded." Her face drained so fast it was almost comical. She spun and walked away without another word. After that, her threats stopped. Months later, the orchard still stands. I visit it when I can. The trees are older now, rough-barked and stubborn. I walk the rows and feel my father in the air, not like a ghost, but like a lesson. But my mother slowly came back to herself. She laughs again sometimes. She started gardening. She started calling friends. She stopped flinching every time the phone rang. And me, I learned something I wish I'd learned sooner. Sometimes the biggest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from someone who knows exactly where you keep your soft spots and aims for them on purpose. But here's the other truth. You can survive that. You can outsmart it. You can protect what's yours without becoming cruel. And if you're patient, and you document everything, and you refuse to be intimidated, you can win. If this story hit home for you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to love, you take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And remember, protect your peace, protect your paperwork, and never underestimate the power of someone finally deciding they're done being quiet.